You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. I'm Dr. Joshua Lindell. I am no longer a grad student studying Neanderthal teeth. I am now an overeducated professional podcaster, I guess.
Fantastic. Congratulations. This is the
Yeah,
first we've
way to
heard
go.
of
Thank you.
Yeah.
it. Party.
Yep. Just last week.
Oh, brilliant, man. That's so good.
And I'm here with...
I'm Dr. Kimberly Plump. I am a bioarchaeologist. I study the human skeleton, health and disease, and evolution.
And I'm Ross Barnett. I used to be a doctor, but because of the way this works, now that Josh has got a doctorate, they have to take one away from somebody else. I volunteered since I'm not using mine at the minute. But I am interested still in phylogenetics and evolution of Ice Age animals.
There can only be one doctor at a time.
Yeah. One in, one out.
Before we get into our episode today, we should announce probably by the time this episode goes up, we will be an affiliate in the Archaeology Podcast Network, which is pretty cool. We've signed up with them, which makes sense because we are very often talking about archaeology on this show. In terms of what that means, we basically get our show on their feed. So if you are listening to us on the Archaeology Podcast Network All Shows feed, I'm not sure if this episode will be going up on that feed by the time this goes up or not, but if you're listening to us for the first time from the Archaeology Podcast Network, welcome. Check out our show. Give us a rating or a thumbs up or whatever option you have on whatever service you're listening to us on, if you have that option available to you and you like our show. If you're a regular listener and you never heard of the Archaeology Podcast Network, go check it out. They've got tons of different archaeology shows, some that you might recognize from our previous guests, like Frederick Trusaham or Dr. Andrew Kinkella. And you can find a lot more content about archaeology that you might like to listen to there. So today we are reviewing a series of sketches from the Armstrong and Miller Show. Is that the name of the show? Apparently there are several different shows from Armstrong and Miller that all have very similar names.
Yeah.
This is the series from 2007 to 2010. Is that right?
That sounds
that we
right.
watched these clips from?
Yeah. They've been in the comedy kind of landscape in the UK for at least sort of 30 years. I remember watching one of the Armstrong and Miller shows as a sort of undergraduate student in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was, brilliant.
So we watched a playlist that already existed on YouTube that had a bunch of these sketches about these cavemen. The series is called Origins of, and each little clip, which is usually about 2 minutes long, shows the origin of some modern thing, and the whole premise of the joke is that these cavemen are behaving anachronistically, which seems to be a joke that they like to do, because they also have a series of World War II soldiers who are talking to each other in 1940s British accents, but in modern slang, which is quite funny.
Yeah. Isn't it, though? Random.
Isn't it, though?
They had a lot of the same actors as ghosts, too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
So I saw Lady Button and Pat from Ghosts in the very first Origins of, which is the Origins of interviews. And yeah, I think that the British kind of comedy landscape is quite insular, it feels like at times. So it's very rare that you have something that doesn't have overlap with something else. So in the earlier shows of Armstrong and Miller, they had Sarah Alexander was a kind of regular guest who is also in other comedy shows like Green Wing, and I can't think of any at the minute, but she's in lots of things. Married to Peter Serafinovich, who's also in lots of things. Look Around You, Shaun of the Dead, all that sort of stuff. So there's a big kind of massive overlapping circles of British comedy from the early 2000s to now.
Well, I guess we'll just go through these in the order that we watched them. I think we all watched the same playlist. There were several playlists that I think all had the same clips in them, and I'm not sure if we got every clip that exists in this series or not. But we have, I think, 8 or 9 clips to go through. So, Ross, do you want to start off with the one you mentioned there, the origins of job interviews?
Origins of job interviews. So, I mean, yeah, like Josh was saying, it's the kind of anachronism that kind of powers the laughs in these kind of sketches. So they have very stereotypical kind of cave people. So big brow ridges, shaggy, uncombed hair, all the kind of bingo ticks that we get each time. Furs, clubs, speaking in. What they've done, what is quite interesting, is they speak in kind of unintelligible nonsense, but it's just close enough to real speech that when they have the subtitles underneath, you can understand what they're saying. So the origins of interviews, they've got Pat from Ghosts is being interviewed by the panel, and they're asking, what he does, and of course he's a hunter. I mean, there's limited job opportunities in this kind of sketch world. He also does a bit of gathering, which is great. And he's been doing this for many moons. So it is quite fun how they kind of deal with this kind of anachronism, and despite having kind of modern thought processes and essentially modern language, they do kind of throw in that they measure their time in moons rather than years, which is quite cute. And he it's not sure whether he gets the job or not at the end, because he has a big gap in his resume where he went off to wander the plains, which we've all been there. We've all felt the call of the plains at various times. And there's the next guy that comes in, does even worse because he's broken his CV. His CV is like a few kind of carvings on a big stone, which is broken into pieces. So you can very quickly kind of get your head around how these sketches work, and it's quite nice that they bring back the same characters time and time again. So we kind of meet some of them which have kind of cave people names like Ra and Arg and Ugg and Scar. They kind of pop up again and again.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about here is the CV that he brings in has like a cave painting of a sort of stick figure hunting some sort of antelopes or something with a bow and arrow.
It's
one
funny.
of the things when we see cave paintings on this podcast, very often it's like obviously directly inspired by another painting. And this one looked familiar, but when I was searching for it, I could not find this exact cave painting, and it's because the Google image search is flooded by AI garbage these days.
Right.
And so I was wondering if any of you recognized this particular cave painting. It's not Upper Paleolithic.
No.
Largely because they don't have human figures in the Upper Paleolithic, and this has a human stick figure doing hunting with a bow and arrow.
To me, it just looked like what people made, like when someone is going to make up one, that's what they do. I don't know if there's an actual real...
It kind of reminded me of the kind of Green Sahara or kind of Middle Eastern style, especially with the antelopes, that kind of stuff that they often drew.
I'll have to Google it. What would I Google for that?
So Saharan rock art, lots of them have the kind of bow and arrows, stick figures, and kind of antelopes and aurochs and that kind of thing in them. I don't think there's particularly a match, but it's very much that kind of stylized but recognizable and single color, so kind of monochrome ochre kind of images. Which, I mean, but it tends that kind of art tends to be very much on walls rather than on kind of portable stuff. I mean, there is portable art all the way through, but it's just not as common because it's easily broken, like the guy's CV.
But I never thought about that. Do we ever have portable art that's like a rock art painting on a portable rock rather than like a portable figurine?
Yeah, definitely.
Where do we have that from?
I mean, I only know definite examples from the Paleolithic, but there are there's kind of rock examples. There's lots of kind of almost like sketches, so like kind of preliminary trial runs. There's ones from I'll have to look it up.
Hey, Josh here. Incidentally, Ross's computer died mid-sentence while we were recording, and we had to start over using his cell phone. So I just wanted to check in and let you know why his audio is going to sound different after this point.
There are kind of examples of portable. Obviously, there's lots of portable ivory art from the Paleolithic and later periods, all the kind of Venus statues and carved mammoths and cave lions and hedgehogs and all sorts of things. There is some sort of pebble art as well, which has kind of, and slates that have images scratched into them. They're not hugely common, but then they're not very easy to identify either. Quite often there's multiple images kind of superimposed on top of each other, which makes kind of identifying the images difficult, but they are out there.
Yeah, I was saying about how they must be somewhat sentimental or spiritual or something in order to be carried around, because it would be so much effort.
Or worn as pendants.
Mm-hmm. The other thing we can talk about in this sketch is that the CV that he's got has a painting of hunting with a bow and arrow, but the people we're seeing in all these sketches seem to be much from a much older time, because they're the classic caveman, and nobody in any of the sketches that we see actually ever has a bow and arrow. And so I wonder if we have a discrepancy if these people actually could have or would have used bow and arrows. Maybe we should start off at the beginning after having seen all these sketches, trying to pin down, are these Neanderthals? Are they Upper Paleolithic modern humans? What time period do you think we're actually looking at? Or, I mean, is it worth it to figure that out?
My guess is that they were going for
I think
like
they're supposed to be Neanderthals.
Neanderthals, yeah, 'cause with the brow ridge and stuff. But they do have chins and everything. And they were the way that they were talking was kind of, it wasn't just that it was broken English, right? It was that they kind of tried to make it talk like, I don't know, in a way that wasn't quite modern human. So that's what I took from it, is that they were trying to be Neanderthal.
Yeah, though we do see some of their technology. They have hafted weapons and composite weapons. So they have wooden shafts with flint, quite nice flint spearheads. And also it looked like they had ligament bindings as well. So that was nice.
The website tvtropes.org, which we bring up once in a while, which is a good resource for all of our bingo tropes. It has a trope called all cavemen were Neanderthals, and I think that that's something we're seeing here and something we see in a lot of our movies, where your generic caveman, it fits like sort of the popular stereotype of what a Neanderthal is, but nobody really has a thorough understanding of prehistoric peoples. So you have us, and then you have Neanderthals, and then before that you have, non-human apes, I think, in the public imagination.
Monkeys.
Yeah.
I suspect that there's just not that much difference. I mean, a lot of people still even think that Neanderthals are our ancestors, right? So they probably don't really see a difference.
Which
a lot
they
of people
sort of are.
Well, but not in that way, though.
Well, I mean, literally in that way. If we have Neanderthal DNA, then we do literally have Neanderthal ancestors. I think that just in general, as a science, we still haven't really wrapped our heads around this, what's the word I'm looking for? This branching, but then coming back together of evolutionary trees. There's a word for when...
Reticulation.
Reticulation is the word I'm looking for, yeah. Not that that's a good science communication word, because I can't even remember it, so the average person won't know what I mean. Anyway, when we used to think evolution is branching and you keep diverging, but now we realize that very often in that process of speciation, we branch apart as lineages, but then we come back together and mix, and that's pretty normal, it seems, across the board. And we don't have a language, and we don't really, I myself personally, even though I sort of study that area, still have a hard time getting my head around this coming apart and coming back together. And we don't really have the common language to talk about lineages like that, because they're not lineages anymore. They're networks, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Do we want to move on to the next sketch? The origins of teenagers.
Sure.
Kim, do you remember
do this one, Kim?
What happens on this one?
So they're having a ceremony, like a coming of age ceremony, where the teenager is supposed to become a man, but the teenager's like sulky and doesn't want to be part of it. So he's hiding behind a tree, and they have to call him over, and he's like, "No, I don't want to do it." And then eventually, like, they tell him he has to come. So he comes and he's got the long hair, kind of the emo, like, in his eyes and everything. And the dad says something about, like, now you have to go hunt a mammoth. And he's like, no, I'm a vegetarian. Don't hunt mammoths. And then the dad says, what do you mean you don't hunt mammoths? And he's like, yeah, I don't want to kill any animals. He's like, but you're wearing fur boots. And then the teenager's like, it's different. And then the dad's like, how is that different? And then the teenager huffs away. He doesn't want to be part of the ceremony. And then the mom says something like, or the dad tries to go after him and the mom stops him and just says, like, he's going through a phase. He's, going through something. Today I caught him sharpening his spear. And then the dad said something like, oh, so he is ready for hunting. And then the mom was like, no, sharpening his spear. And then the dad, I think it ended with the dad being like, oh, so he has become a man. It was cute.
I feel called out by this one because I'm a vegetarian, but I just bought a pair of leather Birkenstocks this past weekend.
Yeah, I know.
That's where the worlds of archaeology and vegetarianism have conflict in your leather Birkenstocks. The actor that plays the teenager, who's called, I think, Chul in this one, the actor's called Tiger Drew Honey, and he's been in lots of comedy stuff. We were talking earlier about how insular the kind of comedy world is, but he's in Outnumbered, so he plays the oldest of the kids in the Outnumbered. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
No.
It's a very funny sitcom about a family with 3 kids, hence they're outnumbered. But it's definitely worth a watch on iPlayer. And he's also in Cuckoo, which has a run for like 4 or 5 series, I think.
Yeah,
it
started
the first season.
Started with Adam Sandberg.
First season has
right?
Adam Sandberg. It's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it goes to Taylor Lautner, I think, is in the second season. But the actor that plays the teenagers in that as well. And he's also done lots of other stuff with Armstrong and Miller. There's quite a good series of sketches where Alexander Armstrong plays a divorced dad, and they have all these kind of stereotypical dad and son meetups where they're like having a picnic in the park, or they're kind of having a kick around playing football, and what always happens is that the kid asks a very kind of innocent kid-like question, like, why did you and mom have to split up? Something like that. And then Armstrong always answers, well, basically, it's because it's entirely your fault. And things were great until you came along. And then, but he does it in that kind of classic, trying to be upbeat, divorced dad kind of way, which makes it really funny. And could just kind of get amusing in a terrible way.
Maybe the thing we can talk about in this clip is the origins of adolescence. From, I guess there's 2 angles here. We can talk about the just biological adolescence that humans have, which is a different life history stage that other animals don't have. And we can also talk about the adolescent rebellious phase from more of a cultural anthropology standpoint.
There's a book now called Adolescence in the Stone Age, isn't there? Or something like that. Rebecca.
Growing up in the Ice Age? Isn't that April Noel, who we had on way back on our Alpha episode? Yep,
exactly. And there's a TV show now, too, that it was made into a show. Netflix, maybe? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like a documentary, yeah.
I think they've done like studies of comparative work between kind of Neanderthal and modern human growth from teeth, I think. Is that right? I mean, I think the Neanderthal and teeth people will be able to keep me right here, but didn't they show that Neanderthals had a slightly longer kind of adolescence than modern humans, or am I misunderstanding and misremembering that?
I remember them having... Yeah, Josh will know more than me.
Yeah.
I was going to say the faster, but...
I did some research on this for one of my PhD courses, and it's really frustrating because all the studies are inconsistent. So the studies either show that Neanderthals had the same rate of growth as modern humans or slightly accelerated. And when it comes to the teeth, their sort of speed of growth of the teeth sort of differs from ours. So when they're looking at the incremental growth lines in teeth, I can never remember which is which, but one of them starts off with fast growth that then slows down, and the other one starts with slow growth that then speeds up. So there's slight differences potentially in growth between Neanderthals and modern humans, or maybe not. And I think the problem is we're looking at very small sample sizes for Neanderthals, and so the noise is sort of overwhelming the actual pattern right now, and it's really hard to tell, unless there's new papers in the last 5 years that I haven't caught up with. But
I don't think so.
From what I remember,
No.
I was so frustrated with that project because there's one paper that says one thing, and then there's another paper that says totally the opposite. And so I don't feel like we have a great clear picture, but maybe Neanderthal growth was a little accelerated compared to modern humans.
So same, but different.
Yes.
But still same.
But still the same. But maybe not even. Who knows?
The other thing we can talk about in this clip is the cultural adolescent rebelliousness, because none of us are cultural anthropologists here. I remember learning in the little bit of cultural anthropology that I studied for my undergrad, whenever you think something is a human universal, it's probably not. And so I know that there have been studies into adolescence. Margaret Mead was one of the famous anthropologists who was studying adolescence, and her work has been sort of questioned more recently because it seems like she was studying the adolescence of girls in Samoa, and it seems like maybe some of those girls were maybe fucking with her and just like telling her stories.
Which is, again, a very adolescent thing to do.
Yeah. But the idea of our adolescent rebellion that feels so universal in our society today is probably not universal amongst all societies. And so I don't know how to assess whether or not Neanderthals or cave people would have had something similar. But I think when you're in these smaller communities that, ancient people would have lived in, you're probably going to have less of a rebelliousness because, there's not as much space to make smaller subcultures and stuff like that. Everybody is sort of more homogenous in their beliefs because you only live in pretty small family groups.
And it's on the edge as well.
But if you think about it in the biological sense, they still have all the hormones. Like, that's why teenagers are nightmares, right? Is because they're raging hormones. So I think even if culturally you're not necessarily rebelling, I could still see a Neanderthal teenager being bitchy, right? Because everything, like they would still have the hormones just telling them everything is horrible.
Yeah, just getting grounded by their parents because they want to hang out with some cool Homo sapiens, and that being very much frowned upon. That
was the plot of The Croods, I believe.
Yeah. I was so mad at my mom because she said I wasn't allowed to go to a 3-day winter music festival 5 hours up north with my friend's uncle's going to drive us, and we don't know where we're going to stay. And she said, no, I couldn't go. And I was devastated and so angry. I was like 14. It's funny because I was so mad. But looking back now, if she had let me go, that would have been some really bad parenting.
Yeah.
Do we want to move on to the origins of baby naming?
Yeah.
Maybe I can do this one since I never summarize things.
You do that one.
So we have a couple who have to name their baby. The premise of this one is they're making fun of the sort of ridiculous names that sometimes people give their babies, which is pretty standard fodder for jokes, I think. They're trying to come up with a name for their baby, and one of them, I think it's the mother, suggests that they name their baby and the other one suggests that is not a good name because that's the sound that we make when we like food, and it's going to be confusing. So they name the baby and then we cut to the baby being an adolescent and the parents are eating food and they're going and then the kid comes and then they're like, oh no, we're just eating food, and then the kid storms off frustratedly, and we can see that there's a problem for this child. And then we cut to the future again, and we have the whole sort of group of people together, and the leader is talking about how the mammoths have gone, so they need to make a sacrifice, and they ask if there's any volunteers. And somebody, I think it might be Pat from Ghosts, is sort of sitting off to the side, eating a giant leg of some large Pleistocene animal. And the leader asks if there's anybody who can be suggested for a sacrifice, and this guy eating his meat just goes, and then the leader goes, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So they pull the kid away from his parents, and then the father turns to the mother and sort of says, see what you've got us into with this name.
And then the Pat guy just like mouths to them like, sorry.
And the thing to me about this is that this isn't the origin of baby names, because everybody has names, and they seem to have already established that there are standard names, and this is not the origin of naming. This is a non-standard name. But anyway, I don't know. The thing I think about crazy names is that I'm totally for crazy names, because today we have all of our established names that are just names, but all those names actually mean something in an old dead language, and we just sort of forgot that. And so throughout history, it has been standard to name people with a name that means something. Not in this case. Their name is just a funny sound. The other side to this, I think that they're making more fun of, is people who name their kids' names with weird spellings, like Jackson with Jaxsyn, or like all of the different forms of Caitlin, Keighthlyn, or
just all the extra letters.
Like yeah, K8LIN.
Yeah, the middle 8 letters are silent.
But yeah, essentially all names are made up. So what's the problem?
Yeah. Well, the problem is that if you give your child a name that sounds like when you're eating food, then it's going to be confused with when you're eating food. So, bear that kind of thing in mind.
Yeah. I think there's also certainly, if you have a name like you picked on Jackson as one, and it has an alternate spelling, then that kid is going to have to spend their whole life spelling out their name differently. And it depends on the person as well as whether that would be annoying or not. I mean, some people are very precious about their names and get upset when it's spelt wrongly, and really hold a grudge if it's pronounced wrongly, or if you don't immediately know how to use it. But if you're okay, if you kind of take the attitude that, as long as it's like lots of words. Are you a kind of prescriptivist or are you a descriptivist? The same thing can apply to names. If you're okay with people kind of butchering your name, as long as you know that they're talking to you, which is the purpose of a name, then that's okay. But if you get sort of stressed out by it not being sort of spelt the way you want it to be spelled, or said the way you want it to be said, then that's going to lead to a kind of lifetime of trouble.
Well, okay.
And probably also not going to help your relationship with your parents.
As someone with the last name Plump, I can say that it is very rare, and I'm usually shocked. Like, I'm usually kind of flabbergasted for half a second when someone actually says my name correctly. I'm used to just answering to anything that starts with a pla, right? Because everybody tries to make it sound, they either just say like plump is the normal one, and you're like, no, there's no you, but whatever. Or they desperately try and make it sound prettier, ploop or something, and you're just like, no, it's just plump. Exactly how it sounds. It sounds like something wet hitting the floor. It's just plump. But yeah, you have to just live with it. And then also, when my middle name is Anne, so when I publish under K.A. Plomp, which is Kaplomp. The parents didn't mean for that to happen, but you just have to ride it out, yeah.
Plomp sounds like a really cool game for 2 to 4 players that
you got
that came out in the kind of late 80s or early 90s, but then was recalled because people lost an eye or something.
Oh, the other thing we can talk about before we move on from this one is human sacrifice. Did they have human sacrifice in the Paleolithic amongst potentially Neanderthals or other Paleolithic people?
I mean, it's hard to say. There's evidence, and there's even recent evidence now that people have interpreted Neanderthals having cannibalism, and then people went with it that saying like they're eating Neanderthals for food, but typically cannibalism is ritualistic, right? So it could be something like that. The way that they interpret it, the reason why they interpret it as cannibalism is because the individuals were cut up, showed the same type of butchery marks that an animal would. So they've interpreted it that mean that they were butchered like an animal. But I mean, also, just because they were butchered doesn't mean that they were eaten by the Neanderthals. They could have been sacrificed and then left to a higher power or something, right? But we really I don't think we really don't know unless you find somewhere like is it the Incas that have very obvious sacrificial rituals that we can see in the archaeological record. I don't think you can really tell the difference between interpersonal violence and sacrifice. I don't know if you can tell the difference.
You need to have a lot of bodies, I think, to make that, like with the Aztecs, where they have lots of bodies that have the same.
Yeah,
they have the same kind of cut marks where they've removed the heart, and it's the same across dozens of skeletons. You need to have that kind of level of,
and it seems to be in the same area, and there seems to be and there seems to be structures there, and otherwise it could just be interpersonal violence or famine.
There was one paper I was looking at here interpreting human sacrifice in the Upper Paleolithic, based on multiple burials. There's a lot of burials in the Upper Paleolithic with more than one person, like two people or more than two people together. And of course, to bury two people together, they have to die at nearly the same time. So you can have that from accidents. But the paper is talking about how there's like way more multiple burials than we should expect, and not a lot of single burials. So they were interpreting that in some cases, a possibility for that could be human sacrifice. And also because a lot of these burials have, birth defects or dwarfism or things like that. And so I don't know what we think about that, if that seems tenuous to us.
I don't know if it's tenuous, but it's just one of those things that's like, yeah, it definitely could be. But that's all we can, I think that's as far as we can say, right? Mm-hmm. It's a good interpretation, I think. It's a justified interpretation, but it's probably not the only interpretation. And we can't really go beyond just suggestion. Makes for good stories, though, right?
I mean, even like with the Neanderthal remains that have cut marks, I mean, that's very suggestive of cannibalism, and whether that's as a sign of respect or a sign of disrespect, we can't tell. But there's other things it could be too. Like it could be them kind of like sky burial, sort of cutting off the flesh to allow other things to eat it more easily for respectful reasons. There's almost always alternative explanations.
I think as far as I can think of in terms of cannibalism, it's generally either out of respect, out of disrespect, so like losing a battle or something with your enemies, famine, because that does happen, right? And losing a child or something, so like taking it, like a loved one, like taking it back in, so it's like an actual mortuary behavior, so it's not even just necessarily a special one-off occasion, but it's something that happens typically in how you treat the dead in your society. But how we could identify the difference in that in the archaeological record, I don't know.
Yeah, we want to move on to origins of alcohol.
What was an origin rather than some of the other ones which were just involving the title card.
Yeah.
So like Josh said, it wasn't the origin of baby naming, so babies already had name. It wasn't the origin of teenagers because there clearly had been other teenagers before, and can't have been the origin of interviews if somebody already had a CV. But for this one, the two kind of main hunters played by Armstrong and Miller, they are sitting down and complaining that it's been 3 months with no meat and they want mammoth, but they've got some berries. But then they hear a mammoth, and so they go off to try and hunt it and leave the berries behind in the rain. And so the berries in this little bowl kind of ferment. And by the time they get back from chasing the mammoth, which they haven't managed to get, they try drinking the berries from the little bowl. And there's a great one from Alexander Armstrong where he has a sip of it and he goes, cheeky. And I don't know if this is kind of filtered over the pond, but Alexander Armstrong is kind of fairly well known for being a kind of connoisseur of wine. In fact, he's presented some programs about wine with another journalist who coincidentally is his brother-in-law, where they kind of go on a wine trip to France and kind of, it's just about them buying booze, but it's worth a watch. Anyway, they bring this new discovery back to the tribe, and all the tribe get drunk. And then there's a really nice bit where they kind of take the idea of the beginning of 2001, where the monolith kind of promotes human evolution by influencing the kind of monkey men in 2001 to use a bone as a club, with the kind of the Also sprach Zarathustra in the background. They do something similar here, except everyone's drunk and they're hungry, and they take what is some meat turning on a spit above a fire. They very solemnly, kind of in slow motion, tip it from horizontal to vertical, so it ends up looking just like a kebab, which is the classic post-pub meal on your way back home in the UK. So they invent the kebab, and then they're carving it off. And Miller immediately goes, "No onion, just chili sauce for me," which is also the classic thing that happens when you get your kebab, that you get offered various sauces and additionals that you don't want. So that was quite funny.
Yeah, that didn't hit for me, and I had to ask. I assume that was the case, but like, I'm like, why does this turn into a shawarma? This must be a UK thing. I assumed that was the case, that this is drunk people getting street food on the way home, but it didn't resonate for me because that's not my experience. My experience with drunk food is pizza on the way home, but at least I can understand the concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite regional. So the kebab as the preferred food of the drunk is very much English, and not just English, but a sort of Southern English kind of thing. It's not what, there weren't very many kebab places in Durham where me and Kim both worked.
No, but Liverpool there was.
Yeah, okay.
Liverpool, it was kebabs,
so
yeah.
That might have been the kind of cut-off point. Maybe a north-south divide.
Yeah. Durham was chippies, right? You'd go and get
them. And certainly that's the case in Scotland as well.
Oh.
It's the chip shop is where you'd go on the way back.
Oh, so good. The hot chips with the salt and the vinegar and I miss it.
Origins of alcohol.
Well, we've talked about the origins of alcohol before, so maybe we can gloss over that. But alcohol really gets its start with the Neolithic Revolution, once you start living in one place and you have vessels to actually store things in where they can ferment. Of course, they've got the classic Mousterian bowl that they have their berries in this clip. But they didn't really have waterproof vessels like that amongst the Neanderthals or any Paleolithic peoples. So there's nothing to ferment things in, really. I mean, there would have been. They could have used skins or something. Yeah. But if they were fermenting things in skins, I guess we just wouldn't necessarily have any evidence of that. So it's possible. But the earliest evidence is when people become sedentary, because your stuff needs to ferment for several days to become alcoholic. So you need to have a large amount of liquid, which is very heavy. And if you're a mobile hunter-gatherer people, then that's not really an easy thing to do. So, and you don't necessarily have the sugars or starches that you need in large quantities to ferment things. Do we want to move on to the origins of art criticism?
Yeah.
I think this is one for Kim.
Okay. So this one starts with two guys find like a slab or a rock with a drawing on it. Like it's not as a dense drawing like the CV, but it's kind of just an outline drawing, right? So almost abstract-y. And one of them says, "Oh, it's a mammoth." And then the other guy says, "Oh, it's a shit mammoth. It's not a very good mammoth." And the other guy was like, "What do you mean it's not a good mammoth? It just looks like a mammoth." And then he was like, "No, I mean, the proportions of the body to the head and this and that, it's not a very good mammoth drawing." And then the guy, I think he says something like, "It's not about whether it looks like a mammoth. It's about whether it feels like a mammoth." And then the other guy just goes, "Wanker." and walks away.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is that at least the upper Paleolithic cave paintings that we always talk about are very realistic looking, and you can, very clearly tell, at least in terms of the animals, they always very clearly look like the animal that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Neanderthals didn't do a lot of cave painting as far as we can tell.
And the classic kind of Paleolithic cave art is loved by critics. They can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about that one, do you?
No, it was a short one, right? It's only a minute long.
Yeah.
So the next one is the origin of small talk.
Yeah, I suppose I can do this one. There's one caveman sitting on a log just waiting, and another one shows up. One thing that I wanted to point out is that whenever they're sitting on a log, the logs are clearly sawn with a modern saw.
That's a good point.
They're sitting on a log and waiting for the mammoth to come. So the second guy comes up, and this is the origins of small talk. So they are talking about waiting for the mammoth. The mammoth comes at dark, so they have to sit there until dark and wait for the mammoth to come, and they have to find something to do in the meantime. And they're making small talk like you would today. They're asking what they do, but of course they all do the same thing because they're all hunter-gatherers and jobs don't exist yet. They talk about their wives. They talk about whether or not they like mammoth. They talk about whether or not their wives like mammoth. And
the weather.
It's very awkward, which is the point. They're trying to the weather. They're making small talk, but it's very awkward. So again, I don't know that this is the origin of small talk because it's exactly the same as small talk today. It's awkwardly talking to somebody who you have to sit beside, but you don't know anything about. A third guy shows up. And they're talking about why. Like I didn't take my notes very well here. The third guy's wife is dead, and it's revealed that his wife died at 12 years old. So I guess the main joke that we have here is that people in the past either took very young wives or died very early and didn't live very long. We have the trope that the average life expectancy was like 40 years old in the past. And of course, there's that misconception. It's not that everyone was dead by 40. It's that we have a lot of infant mortality. So if you survived infancy and childhood, you were likely to live to an actual old age of, maybe 50 or 60 or 70 would not be that unusual if you survived to adulthood. Do we have anything else to say about this sketch?
No, I don't think so.
No. Just that when he finds out that she died at 12, the original guy says, "Oh, good innings." Which is the classic kind of thing that you say when somebody's kind of died in their 90s or having made a century.
There's a lot of British stuff in some of these sketches. Innings is referring to what sport? Because innings in America is baseball, but they're not talking about baseball. What are they talking about there?
Cricket.
It would be cricket, wouldn't it?
Cricket?
Yeah, cricket, which is not something I know about as a Scotsman, but yeah. Next one is origins of dinner parties, which I thought was quite a good one, actually. It was quite funny. So they've got all the tribe are round and about, and they've got too much mammoth, and then some people come along, and they kind of do the classic welcoming and asking who wants blood. So instead of wine, they get offered kind of mammoth blood. There's the kind of main couple are hosting, and then there's a single cave woman and a single cave man, and they're trying to set them up clearly at this dinner party. One of them has to leave to use the tree at one point in the meal. Disappears to go and have a slash by the tree. They talk about getting married. I think one of the couples asks the single cave woman, "You marry?" And she said no, and looks kind of pointedly at the single caveman and asks him, "Are you married?" And he goes, "One civil partnership, but boyfriend not one fuss." Which was a really good and unexpected punchline for that whole kind of setup. So they're trying to matchmake, but one of them's already the caveman already has a boyfriend, and it's fairly serious because they were wanting to do a civil partnership. But there you go.
And then the single woman is like, "Ugh, typical."
Yeah, classic.
And of course, the message here is that, gender is a construct, and the types of gender we have today could have been expressed equally in Stone Age times, but I don't know of any research on gender in the Stone Age, and I don't even really know how we would look into that. Have you heard of anything?
No, the only thing I would know is it would be more about how we interpret gender. So it would be our perceptions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this one's not so much about gender, it's about sort of kind of sexual attraction as well, I guess, and relationships. And certainly, looking at burials, not Paleolithic, but there's certainly some famous burials where the skeletons have been found in an embrace, in inverted commas, but the kind of genetic sex of the skeletons have been shown to be both male. So that is suggestive of a kind of romantic attachment there, which was expressed in their kind of burial situation. And I don't know, certainly not in Paleolithic as far as I know, but there certainly is art of kind of same-sex relationships in most cultures, like kind of, I'm thinking of Grecian urns, I'm thinking of kind of moche pottery from South America. Some of it quite explicit as well. There's no doubt about what's going on. And it's very clearly kind of same-sex attraction, mostly male-male, I think, but I'm sure there are kind of female-female as well.
One thing I can think about interpreting, if not gender, sex roles during the Paleolithic is interpreting the sex of artists from the size of the cave wall handprints, because one of the common things we see in Paleolithic art is making either handprints or negative handprints by painting around hands on the wall. And so using the size of the hand impressions to interpret the size of the person and therefore the sex, the biological sex of the person. And I don't know, I haven't read that research myself, but I've heard about it. So at least that's one of the ways where people are trying to get a feel for the different behaviors of sexes in the Paleolithic.
And certainly there's footprint, like ichnological footprint evidence of, I think is it the White Sands in New Mexico, where they have a lot of late Pleistocene human footprints and other species as well. But there's examples of what suggested to the authors of the paper of a mother walking with her kind of toddler, and then picking it up at one point. So you see two sets of footprints walking along, and then there's an extra deep set where somebody has sort of stopped and picked up, and now there's only one set of footprints kind of walking away, which is really a nice little kind of vignette of
that's the part where I carried you.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
The creationists were right. Evidence of Jesus in the fossil record.
Sand people always walk single file to hide their numbers.
Also true.
Mm.
But yeah, what does Obi-Wan know? I mean, he says that they're only Imperial troopers could be this accurate, and the one thing we know about Imperial troopers is that they're not accurate. So I think he's just talking a lot of horseshit.
We've got 2 sketches to go. The second last one is The Origins of Charity.
I zoned out
of this one a bit.
Did this make any sense to you guys?
Yeah.
I got the concept. This yellow smock must have been a particularly British thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering if the charity muggers.
You couldn't walk through town without charity. Like, it would be constant. And you're like, I'm just trying to get to my groceries. 5 of you have already asked for the same thing. Like, even if I did give money, I can't give money to all 5 of you. It's just nuts. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very British thing. They're called chuggers, so charity muggers. And quite often, they'll find the high street, and like Kim says, it won't just be one; it'll be 5, 6, 7 from the same charity, like spaced like 5 meters apart. So if you manage to get past one, the next one will get you. Or if you manage to get past 2, then the next one. There's no chance of doing your shopping without getting cornered.
And then you end up getting to having to be quite rude because you're frustrated.
Yeah.
And it seems constant.
Yeah. And you don't
and
want
some
to
of
be
them
rude,
won't leave you. Yeah. But you're like, no.
But I was quite funny because the classic kind of starting one is they do kind of bounce up to you out of nowhere and go, "Hello, mate, how's it going?" All very cheery, trying to get you to sort of stop, because that's the first step, is to stop where you're walking to listen to the spiel, and then they'll kind of reel you in and say, you just give however much you can give, blah blah blah. But this guy was doing it for the mammoths being in danger, which was quite a fun twist. And the guy he stopped goes, "Yes, me hunted. That's why." And there's only 10 million mammoths in the forest.
I know. And the other guy was like, was that bad?"
Yeah, there used to be many more, and they're asking for 2 sacks of berries a month.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if that's bad. Like, what would the population of mammoths have been? How many mammoths would you need as a population?
Well, there's definitely been lots of work done on this.
If you look at elephants. Oh, yeah.
And 10 million, it's probably not an unreasonable number for the whole population, like off whichever species you want to talk about, mammoth, woolly mammoths or Columbian mammoths or whatever. 10 million is probably not a bad estimate, but from Central Europe to Alaska as one kind of whole population, because they're huge, they're slow reproducing, they require a lot of space and territory, and like you're saying, Kim, like elephants. I mean, before massive kind of human persecution over the past couple of centuries, I doubt there would have been more than a few million of them over all of Africa and India.
The Google AI overview says that there are an estimated 415 African elephants and 40 to 50,000 Asian elephants alive today. I have no idea if that's remotely trustworthy.
No,
415?
415,000 African elephants. So 10 million mammoths. I mean, I don't know what the population of elephants was, before human intervention. Or I suppose, having read the Google AI overview, I don't know the population of elephants today either. But 10 million mammoths doesn't seem like an unreasonably low amount of mammoths, particularly if they're just talking about their forest.
Yeah, if it's just their forest, that's probably slightly too many. I think that's what we're also supposed. I think that's what we're also supposed to think, that this charity person is just making shit up. That the mammoths don't need our charity, but that's what he's trying to get the person to think.
According to Wikipedia list of elephant species by population, there are, under 500,000 African elephants, and if you add up all the different populations of Asian elephants, looks like less than 100,000. So, wow. I mean, these numbers are probably too low compared to what they would have been a few hundred years ago, but still, 10 million mammoths sounds pretty reasonable to me.
But not for one forest.
Not for one forest. That's too many.
You wouldn't be able to turn around without bumping into a mammoth.
Yeah. And then at the end of the sketch, you have the original person that was accosted. So, and a woman walked past, but when he tries to ask her to stop, she hits him on the head with a club, which is again a classic cave
that
person
was me
bingo.
by like the fourth person when I was just trying to get to Tesco.
All right, we got one more sketch, The Origin of Acceptance Speeches.
Okay, so this one is a guy is really won a hunt. I forget what it was. It was a cave bear or something he killed?
It was a cave beast.
A cave beast. So they were, giving him like a ceremony, like they gave him the cave beast's penis as like a trophy.
Yeah.
Did I hear that properly?
Yeah.
And so it was supposed to be given to him like a trophy. Yeah. And then he goes up to take it, and then they were like, "You should say some words." And then he's like, "Oh, okay." So then he starts to be like, "Well, yes, I killed the cave beast, but I didn't do it alone. This person made the spear, and this person made the trap, and then Scar acted as the human bait, and he can't be here today. But and then he goes on, and then he starts just like doing the regular this acceptance speech like stuff, thanks his wife, everybody for all the support. And there's just obviously there's only like 6 people sitting there, but there's obviously one dude that he's left out because you can just see his face like growing more and more like grumpy about it. And then he finishes the speech and he goes and he sits down beside him, and then he looks at his buddy, and then he realizes he's like, oh no, I forgot you. And then his buddy's like, you're dead to me.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about this one other than maybe we could talk about the act of awarding the beast's penis as a trophy for killing the beast. Maybe we can think about that in terms of like Neanderthals wearing eagle claws or something, like killing or capturing an eagle is sort of something that proves your worth as a hunter, and then you wear the claws to show that you have succeeded at this task or something. But I mean, even that's speculating about Neanderthals did wear eagle claws, it seems, but it's what they meant or how they got them, I don't think is very clear.
But they said that it's the best part, right? So to me, that meant that he was supposed to eat it. But penises aren't the best part to eat because they're just muscle, right? Like it's not.
They're not even muscle.
As far as I've heard, the penises are not the best part.
Let's be serious for a minute. They're not muscle. They're just kind of cartilage and the corpus
unless it's full of
corpus
blood.
cavernosum. So it's going to be just gristle essentially, and. I mean, first-hand evidence. So I'm thinking of like Aaron Muis, the German cannibal.
That's who I'm thinking of too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He said it was disappointed, right? Like he fried it up. He had the wine to go with it. He was all prepared for it to be this fantasy, and then he was like, it really wasn't very good. He didn't even finish it. He threw it out. Could you imagine having someone kill you to eat you, and then they can't even finish it?
But the victim was in on it, and he tried it too.
Oh, right.
They shared it.
Too, right. They did share it, right? Yeah, I forgot he was still alive at that point.
If anybody is confused...
If you kill me to eat me, you choke me down.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about the very famous German cannibal who met somebody to be consensually killed and eaten over the internet. Met somebody over the internet to be consensually killed and eaten, and they started off with his penis and shared it together. And the last podcast on the left has a good episode of that if you want to hear that whole story.
Yeah.
And if you do, what's wrong with you?
Apparently, we are all very familiar with that story here, though.
Yeah. What does that say about us?
Do we have anything else to say?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that for traditionally in Spanish bullfighting, if it is a successful and stylish kill, then they cut off the ear and they give that to the matador as a sign of respect. So, giving bits of the animal to show respect is not unknown of even in modern culture. And then I'm thinking as well of, have you guys seen Apocalypto? The Mel Gibson film set in South America.
I think that's on our list.
Yeah. But there's a scene in that where they're hunting a tapir and they remove the testicles and claim that the guy that hunted it has to eat them as a sign of respect. But it turns out that they're just messing with them. They just thought it'd be funny to see him eat some tapir balls.
Well, overall, we've been laughing a lot. Seems like we've enjoyed these clips.
Yeah, they were good. It makes me want to watch the rest of the show.
I did
Armstrong
watch
and
a
Miller
few other
they started
clips.
off as quite niche. They both started off quite niche, but they've made fairly mainstream careers for themselves. So Ben Miller has made his name now as a fairly serious actor. He's been in lots of TV shows, and in fact, he's in Bridgerton, the Netflix success. He's in the first 2 series, and he plays Penelope. Is it Featherington? Is that what they're called? The Bridgerton's neighbors. Yeah, Penelope Featherington. He plays Mr. Featherington, so he has kind of a fairly pivotal role in the first couple of series. And interestingly enough, he's written a science book. So he started a PhD in physics, I think astrophysics, but then gave it up to do comedy. And he's a pretty good writer as well. And then Alexander Armstrong is everywhere. So he presents a daytime quiz show called Pointless. He has a radio show on Classic FM. He's quite well known in the UK kind of TV scene.
Cool.
Sounds very impressive.
Well, if you're a new listener who just found us through the Archaeology Podcast Network, hopefully this is up on the Archaeology Podcast Network feed by the time this goes out. If you like what you hear, subscribe to us on our main podcast feed. Check out screensofthestonage.com. Leave us a comment, give us a 5-star rating, or give us a like on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. And tell people about our podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Do you have questions, comments, or movie requests? We want to hear from you. Find us on Blue Sky and Facebook at SOTSA Podcast. Send us an email to screensofthestonage@gmail.com or visit our website at screensofthestonage.com.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.